We bought our house back in November of 2018. This barn came with the house. Now, the thing about the house is, I know a lot of the history of it because it's right next door to where my parents live. So I've known the previous owners, both one of which I knew very well, and the other of which, well, that's the reason we bought the house. Anyway, the barn came with the house. The barn has had many different projects that were going to be done with it, but none of them actually went ahead and have panned out. We decided one day that we were going to turn it into a second kitchen area for trying to make blog videos. That didn't happen. We thought about turning it into this, that, and everything else. Eventually, my mother-in-law decided that she wanted to get rid of her place and was looking for a new place to live. We decided that why not turn the barn into a house. We had talked about actually turning it into an apartment, so it made sense to go ahead and turn it into an apartment, and we would just let my mother-in-law live there. Now, my husband, he needed an office. In fact, when the coronavirus hit last year, he was working in our living room. But with no schools open, our little one was home all the time, and it was very hard for him. So he actually moved into the quote-unquote garage part of our toy hauler. Well, when my mother-in-law sold her place last fall, she moved into the front part of the camper. So they've been sharing this camper for a house and for an office. But we needed to make something more permanent for both of them. So in the barn, we're actually going to have an office for my husband, plus my mother-in-law is going to have an actual place to live. It's going to be a 1-bedroom, 1 bath. It's going to have a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen. I mentioned that I know the history of the property because 2 owners ago lived there while my parents were building their house, which put us in a rental house that was on their place right next door. So we became fairly good friends with the owner at the time. When my parents were done building their house, it was time for my dad to build a barn. With the help of a guy that my dad worked with, Dad designed a barn. That guy, plus the neighbor, got a hold of the plans that my dad had built for his barn. So there are actually 3 barns in the area that look very similar to each other. There are slight differences between the 3 barns, but not enough that you could look at them from the outside and see the difference. It's more in the knowledge of what the other 2 guys did versus what my dad did. At one point, the neighbor still owned the house, and he had decided that he was going to turn the barn into an apartment. Originally, he built it for his horses. He and his wife at the time got rid of their horses and opened a dog kennel. When they got a divorce, they got rid of the dogs and the dog kennel, so he had decided he was going to turn the barn into an apartment. So there was already groundwork laid out for an apartment in the barn. The next guy who owned the place didn't appear to use the barn for anything other than junk storage. He unfortunately passed away and the house was in foreclosure, and that's actually how we wound up buying the place. Now you may ask why we don't turn it into an animal barn ourselves, and part of that is because we have such small acreage here that it wouldn't be feasible for us to do that. Plus, it already had the groundwork laid out to be turned into an apartment. And as I stated before, my parents live right next door, so it's not like we don't have access to our animals anytime we want them. Wish that I would have thought to take video when we first bought the place, but really all I ever thought about doing was taking still photos. So right now I am going to introduce you to the barn as it was on the day we purchased it, which was November the 30th of not 1998. Woo! 2018. Quite a big difference there. I am still giggling at that flub up of the year. Anyway, the barn that you have been looking at while I have been talking, that is the front of the barn. The next photo you're going to see is the side of the barn, and it's going to show you all of the green stuff, moldy type, mossy type, mildewy stuff that has grown on the side. Now one side, the side that's in the picture, you actually see the barn. I did not take a picture of the other side, but the other side is actually covered in all kinds of vines, which is a pain in the tuchus. Then there's the back side, which I didn't even think to take a picture of either, but it's in worse shape than what the front side of the barn is. When you enter the main door of the barn, you can actually see the hallway. Off to the left, that door that you see, when you open that, that opens to what is supposed to be the kitchen. The kitchen has two doors that go off of it. One is either to what was supposed to be a bedroom or maybe a living room. I'm not really sure. The one toward the back end of the barn, that took you to what was supposed to be the bathroom. I have better pictures of all of that. Now, as you're looking in the hallway here, off to the right is there's a doorway, and it leads you to the old dog kennel. The hallway itself, you notice that the concrete floor slants to the middle, or slopes to the middle, and it also, toward the back, it has some pieces of the concrete that are actually totally taken out of it, and I'm not sure if that was for drainage pipes or just what the plans were. Here's a better view of what the right side of the barn looks like as you walk through the main door. We had already started tearing out a few cabinets by the time I got out to take these pictures, because the day we signed for the house was the day we started the demolition project on the house. So, as you can see, there's a sliding door right there, and if you walk through that sliding door, that takes you into what was actually the dog kennel portion of the barn after they changed it from a horse barn. This also gives you a better view of how the floor slopes to those holes, and it shows you that on that back left wall, some of the siding had been torn off. That is not something we did, and we don't really know the story behind that either. This is just the back view of the barn looking out toward the front. It's really not showing you anything else than just a different angle on how everything was placed. So now we have entered into that door that was on the left-hand side. When we walk in, we immediately take a left, and that puts us into this room. My dad told me that this is the room that was used for the office when they had the dog kennel. This is the room that I said might have been a bedroom or it might have been a living room made into, and I'm not really sure what their plans were for this particular room. This is another view of the room, and it just is kind of showing you all the different corners. Now we're going to move into what was going to be the kitchen. When you open that door there on the left in that one picture that I showed you, that puts you immediately into the kitchen. There is a bunch of, it's kind of like linoleum that was put up against the wall. If you look in these pictures, you're going to see that the concrete is really broken up because they were going to do a bunch of plumbing and it just never happened. Why? I don't really know the answer. In the previous kitchen portion of the video, you will actually have seen a door that was back off kind of in the back corner. That's going to lead you to this room. This room was going to be the bathroom, and it also had a back sliding door that took you outside, as you can see. Now we have gone back to the main hallway and gone in the right door. This takes you into the dog kennel. There's not a whole lot left of the dog kennel other than what you see here, and then there were some beads, as you could see, left over from the previous owner. He must have had grandkids or something that played with the beads. I'm not really sure. The barn also has a loft, which the only way to get to the loft is climbing up a ladder. And at that particular day, I didn't have a ladder to climb up, so I don't actually have any pictures of the loft. Today, I could actually go climb up a ladder and take pictures, and the only difference between today and 3 years ago of the loft basically is the fact that we have torn off all of the siding because we are starting to re-side the barn, and you just have a little more light in there. Otherwise, there's not anything that has been changed with the loft. And at this point in time, we don't really have any plans for the loft. At one point, we had decided we were going to make stairs that would take you from the main part of the barn up to the loft. And then we decided, well, what's the point? Because we don't really want to have to build stairs trying to get my mother-in-law in there and that kind of thing right now. Our main focus is to get the barn remodeled so that the office and the apartment are ready to go. So the stairs are going to be added to the back side of the barn. That way, if at some point in time we want to enclose it so that the upstairs could be made into a second bedroom or something like that, we could go in and we could actually put kind of a an addition to the back of the barn that would enclose those stairs. That way you could get upstairs. Otherwise, we're just going to build a set of stairs that you can climb up from the back side of the barn. There will be a door that you can exit through the apartment that puts you out to the back side of the house, and you just go up the stairs. And right now, I think pretty much all we're going to do for the loft is turn it into storage should we need it. The other thing we've considered doing is turning it into a greenhouse starting place of sorts where we can, control the climate of starting plants when we put them under grow lights and on heating mats, because right now they have taken over the house. But other than that, this is how this is how the barn looked the day we bought it. Like I said, those cabinets we put in there because we had torn them out of the house already. And other than that, we really hadn't touched the barn. So I just wanted to give you this is where we started. Now we're going to go from here, and I am going to show you progress videos from here on out. Thanks for watching, and please think about hitting the subscribe button below and giving this video a thumbs up. I know I got a little chatty, and sometimes I tend to do that. I get made fun of for it, but I really like to talk to people. So I hope you enjoyed this, and from here on out, there will be a lot more video footage of the barn versus just pictures and me talking, I hope.